Today we are covering an important aspect of nervous system healing, which is the understanding that most of what our nervous system is reacting to are social threats. Not real physical threats to our physical health and safety, but social threats that relate more to our emotional and mental well-being and very much relate to our relationship with self and our foundations. And by foundations, I'm referring to our sense of self-love, self-acceptance, self-respect, and self-esteem. And the thing is that as long as we have our foundations based upon or influenced by things outside of ourselves, to some degree, we are always going to be under threat. The nervous system will continue to detect threat, to have a neuroception of unsafety, because we cannot control what happens outside of ourselves. We cannot control what other people do, think, or feel about us. And in fact, it is absolutely none of our business what other people think or feel about us. So this video is very much about becoming self-determining, filling ourselves up from within to come from a place of wholeness and self-sourcing, so that no matter what is happening outside of ourselves, whether we are being criticized, rejected, ridiculed, or in a place where we're not valued or we don't belong, we are okay, because we are providing the self-love and acceptance that we need from within. We're okay, and we don't experience the nervous system dysregulation that normally does occur if that is what is happening outside of us. So that is the point of today's video. I'm going to be going into a little bit more detail, as well as giving a little bit more information of how we can work with this. So firstly, I just wanted to recap something from my previous videos, which is neuroception, which I feel would just help with some of the understanding of today's focus. So neuroception is the unconscious scanning of the nervous system to detect cues of threat or safety. And then depending on what the nervous system is detecting, that can then shift us into different nervous system states. So if the nervous system is detecting cues of threat, then that can shift us into either defensive state, and vice versa. If it's detecting cues of safety, then it can shift us into the ventral vagal social engagement system. So if you haven't seen my previous video on neuroception, I do encourage you to go back and have a look, because I go into much more depth with neuroception and how it's a huge opportunity for healing, because for the most part, neuroception is faulty, meaning there's a mismatch between what the nervous system is detecting and what's actually real and happening here and now. And this is because neuroception is heavily distorted by all of our past experiences and past choices. So all of our unresolved hurts, fears, judgments, and criticisms very much impact our sense of neuroception. But for the focus of today's video, this is relevant because, as I mentioned at the start, if most of what we're reacting to are social threats, so that we have a neuroception of unsafety, a lot of the time it's because of a fear of being ridiculed, not accepted, not belonging, not being good enough. Lots of things that relate to our foundations, and as long as they are based outside of ourselves, we are always going to be under threat to some degree. The nervous system will detect a sense of threat. There will be a neuroception of unsafety. So the remedy is to really work on our foundations. The foundations they're the foundations. They help with healing for multiple things, and it's really at the core of all healing is healing our foundations and building them up. So our foundations are very much is our sense of self-acceptance. So again, all of this is ideally coming from within. A sense of self-love, self-respect, our sense of worthiness. So our worthiness, not having that based on anything outside of us, not based on what we look like, what we do, how much money we earn, a sense of status or prestige, or if people like us or love us or not, to have our sense of worthiness coming from within as an aspect of creation. Everyone is intrinsically worthy as an aspect of creation. Everyone has a divine birthright to reconnect with the source from which they are sprung from. Everyone is welcome back into the source from which we are all sprung from, which is the same source. So we are all equally worthy, and everyone is worthy, no matter the path that we have come from. Our worthiness comes from within. And belonging, we will never ever experience belonging unless, like true belonging, unless we first have a sense of belonging with ourselves. So again, a lot of this, it all comes from within. To have like true healthy self-esteem, it all comes from within. So we must cultivate that sense of belonging with ourselves. Sense of self-determination. In many ways, all that I'm speaking about in this video refers to self-determination. It's coming from a place of that we always have a choice. We can't always control what happens outside of us, or what happens to us, or the decisions that other people make, but we always have a choice in how we respond. And that's a lot of what we're working with. We're taking responsibility for our healing and for our feelings, and and that we do always have a choice. And to hopefully eventually come from a place where we are always consciously making a choice, rather than letting our unconscious patterns and programs run and impact what we're doing, impact our choices, which is what I've talked about in previous videos. A lot of the nervous system healing is about making the unconscious conscious, because a lot of these patterns and programs are running all the time, and they are impacting everything from our health and our relationships and our relationship with life. So part of self-determination is about first becoming aware, and from that state of conscious awareness, we're in the empowered state to have the ability to choose, and to choose something new that better suits and serves us here and now. And part of our foundations is also our sense of authenticity, and whether we honor that or if we contort it in order to try and fit in, if our sense of belonging is weak, or our sense of worthiness. So I'll be going more into detail in other videos with this, because it's a very big topic, but this is just, when I say foundations, this is a lot of what I'm referring to. So what is the remedy? Of course, a lot of what I've already been sharing in other videos. We need to spend some time to get more in touch with our feelings, to actually reflect and feel what is actually going on for us, remembering that feelings are the eyes of the heart, and they reveal much more about what's really going on for us than anything we think we know. So none of this is a thinking process, it's very much a feeling process. It's not something that we can think about or figure it out. It's not going to work. We're getting more in touch with our feeling nature, as well as providing lots of tools and support of to be able to get more in touch with our feelings, because sometimes that's a huge challenge in itself. But also, once we are becoming more aware and getting more in touch with our feelings, how can we actually process those feelings and transform and turn them into something else to grow and evolve? So today we are working with loving yourself. So loving yourself is facing all the parts of yourself that are not love, because those are the parts that need your love, not the bits that are already feeling connected and that they belong and that they're worthy. We need to bring love to all the parts where there is no love. That is the process of loving ourselves. which means it's not it's definitely not easy. And it might be a period of time before you actually start to feel your own love. Because when you set on to a task of loving yourself, what you're going to experience is all the parts that need your love. So all the parts where you have shame, guilt, judgment, where you feel not good enough, where there is pain of rejection or betrayal or abandonment, all of this stuff is coming up because that's what needs our love. And that is actually the process working. It's important to not get disheartened or to give up just because we're not feeling much love yet. The process is working when all of this stuff is coming up. Because when love comes in, if we're choosing to integrate more love, or for anything for this matter, if we're choosing to integrate a certain quality, whether it's more love or gratitude or worthiness or patience or more self-determination, whatever it is that we're choosing to integrate, everything that is mutually exclusive with that quality is going to come up so that it can be faced, cleared, and let go of, so that the new choice can take its place. So if we're choosing to love ourselves and we start to have some negative feelings about ourselves come up, that's wonderful. That is the process working. It is not an easy process and it can be very difficult. However, that is the process working. So when that stuff comes up, we remember we're working with loving ourselves. So can we bring love to that? And a lot of it is just being able to feel our feelings, to release the judgment of them, and to acknowledge that they're there, we're accepting them, and then actually letting it go and choosing something else, which is the self-love. Presence is a big part of this, so I really encourage people to just have some time with yourself where you're not doing anything, you're not watching anything, you're not reading anything. You can potentially be listening to music. Sometimes people find that helpful. It helps them get more in touch with their feelings, but just making sure that you're not using it as a distraction to avoid or escape yourself in any capacity. We're wanting this time to actually really be with ourselves and connect with ourselves and see what's there and what comes up that needs to be loved or wants to be loved or needs to be listened to. Because that's another thing. We may need to bring different flavors of love. Sometimes it's more tenderness and softness and nurturance. Sometimes we need a really strong love, which can be in the form of boundaries or healthy discipline. It just really depends on what you've got. So I guess the key takeaway that I wanted to share was remembering that when you're choosing to love yourself more, you will get more in touch with the things that need your love. So you won't necessarily, it's not going to be a lovey-dovey, necessarily warm feeling experience. It takes a lot of courage because it's facing all the stuff that you haven't really wanted to face, and that is potentially quite painful, or some capacity we have judged it. Maybe it's too painful, we just have not wanted to admit it or face it. So it does take a lot of courage, but it's worth it, and in many ways it's the only way is through. Part of nervous system healing is coming from a place of wholeness and self-sourcing, having a sense of acceptance, self-love and self-respect and self-esteem coming from within, to truly be self-determining that no matter what happens to us, what's happening in our external environment, we're okay because we've got ourselves, we're loving ourselves, and we're here for ourselves. And I think that's a wonderful place to be, and it's definitely an ongoing journey. But I feel like that is a big part of what life is really about. and to eventually reconnect with the source from which we come from. So that's it for today's video. Again, I hope it was helpful. If you did enjoy it, please do hit like, and please subscribe for more videos in the Loving Your Nervous System series, which is very much about loving yourself. Loving your nervous system, loving yourself goes hand in hand. So thank you, and hopefully see you next time.